Chris, there's obviously a million things to talk about. You talked about them. I'm going to as well. But I have been thinking about Christian, who you just did the story about all day. And it may be because my daughter's in fourth grade. And when I saw the response from Virginia Fox, it filled my veins with a special kind of rage.
So enraging. Yes, agreed.
It is. But I have to say, Christian, I hope you are not awake out there. And if you're watching right now, you're very nerdy, and I applaud that. And you should probably be asleep. But I think Chris and I could tell you a couple things. One is that your ideas are way better than most people twice your age in Washington, including members of Congress. So
correct.
Note that. Two,
right.
Most people in this town are going to, Democrats and Republicans, I will say, are going to be way more receptive to hearing your ideas than Virginia Fox. So don't be deterred by that letter.
Yes.
That's our shared PSA to Christian out there.
I could not agree more. Maybe we'll see him sitting at a State of the Union one of these days.
Maybe. Come visit us.
When they bring back the EV
too.
tax credit.
Yeah, exactly.
Put him in the gallery.
Exactly. There we go. All right. Well, have a good night. I'll see you tomorrow.
You too.
Okay, today, as Donald Trump and a whole gaggle of his top aides arrived in China to meet with Chinese President Xi Jinping, Vice President J.D. Vance went out of his way to make sure everybody knew he was not forgotten and left behind at home.
So as you know, the president just landed in China a few hours ago. I always, you may know that because of Secret Service protocols that I don't travel outside of the country with the President of the United States. So on days today, I sometimes feel like Macaulay Culkin in Home Alone. I walk into the White House and it's very quiet and no one's there, and it takes me a second to realize exactly what's going on.
Feel a little nervous there about proving your relevance, buddy? That was a lot of explaining. Now, of course, all of that verbal tap dancing from Vance comes as Trump is pitting J.D. Vance and Secretary of State Marco Rubio against one another, asking crowds at the White House who likes J.D. Vance and who likes Marco Rubio, and gauging their popularity via the volume of applause. Yes, that is happening, everyone. So while Rubio was on his big trip with the boss to China, hanging out on Air Force One in a sweatsuit that he thinks looks super duper cool, J.D. Vance is desperately trying to remind Dad he's still his most special boy. He's still doing his homework, even though Dad's away on his big work trip, and he's going to tell you all about it. So today, with tons of pomp and circumstance, J.D. Vance announced that the Trump administration is suspending $1.3 billion of Medicaid payments to the state of California, cuts that the California Attorney General said will impact vital programs that help seniors and people with disabilities remain safely in their homes. And today, J.D. Vance gleefully announced that the Trump administration was cutting more than $1 billion of funding for stuff like that, specifically from California, a state that just so happens to be governed by one of Vance's likely Democratic opponents in the 2020 election, Gavin Newsom, of course. And of course, Vance announced all of this literally the day before Newsom was expected to announce the state's budget for the year. So if you're Vance, politically speaking, today was kind of a twofer. He got some headlines to stay relevant while Marco got to ride on the big plane to go do big boy stuff in China. And he got to attack Gavin Newsom. But of course, if you were to ask Vance why he is cutting more than $1 billion in services to some of our country's most vulnerable and why he did it today, he would have a very different answer.
First of all, why are we doing this now? Why weren't we doing this 2 years ago? And the simple answer is because we didn't have a president and we didn't have an administration who took fraud seriously. All of these efforts, all of these things that we're finding are because we have a president who has told us, take the fraud issue seriously.
Just to be clear, the president he is talking about who takes fraud seriously, according to J.D. Vance, is Donald Trump. Can you imagine saying that with a straight face? Can you imagine saying that you are taking funding from the services for the poor because this guy cares so much about fraud? Now, on any day, J.D. Vance saying that out loud would be utterly shameless. But today, it is especially shameless. And that's because we also just got huge news about Trump's $10 billion lawsuit against the IRS. Last night, the New York Times reported that the Justice Department is considering settling that lawsuit with Trump. And let's just zoom out for a second and just think about that. Because on one side of this lawsuit is Trump in his personal capacity, represented by his own personal lawyers. And on the other side of this lawsuit is the Department of Justice, which is led by Trump's former personal attorney, Todd Blanche. So now Trump's personal attorneys and his former personal attorneys are discussing a settlement of a case that could mean just giving a ton of money to Trump personally. And remember, Trump's Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent is actually on the record earlier this year saying that money is not coming from some magic pot of gold. It's coming from you.
So where would that $10 billion come from?
Again, it would come from...
Process-wise. I'm not asking like your opinion whether it's right or wrong.
It would come from Treasury.
It comes from Treasury, which comes from the general fund?
The Treasury general account.
So taxpayers?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. The American taxpayers would be on the hook for whatever so-called damages Trump might get out of this lawsuit. So why is the Justice Department reportedly trying to settle the case rather than fight it in court? Well, as the Times put it, given that Mr. Trump oversees the IRS, the agency that he is suing, the judge in the case has taken a series of novel legal steps to probe whether there is a genuine controversy between the Justice Department and Mr. Trump. For a lawsuit to be valid, the two parties must actually be on opposite sides. Otherwise, the judge can throw out the case. And the judge had actually ordered Trump's personal lawyers and the Justice Department lawyers to explain how exactly they were on opposite sides here, considering they both have the same boss. So the judge ordered briefs submitted on that matter by next Wednesday, 1 week from today, not very long. And surprise, surprise, there is now a rush to settle out of court before that deadline in a way that would bypass the judge entirely. It is just jaw-droppingly brazen. No sitting president has ever sued his own government for monetary damages. And now Trump is using his power as president to attempt to settle a lawsuit with himself, effectively giving himself billions of taxpayer dollars. And he's doing that while he's simultaneously clawing back more than $1 billion of funding from services for people who actually need help. And I'm not just tying those things together because they happened in the same 24 hours or because they are so craven and so reprehensible. I'm tying them together because Trump explicitly tied them together himself.
$30 trillion debt, and we're going to take $10 billion out of the system?
Well, I mean, you give it away anyway. They give away a lot of money.
Your endorsement
I'll
is
tell
the
you
money.
what,
Yeah.
Speaking about that, Minnesota and these other states, we have massive investigations going into fraud.
Yeah.
Do you know if we captured 50% of the fraud of this country right now, we would have better than a balanced budget?
No. First of all, even if there was that much fraud in Medicaid, which there is not, the idea that the way that you stop fraud is by taking away services from everyone doesn't make any sense. Would you close all the banks in the country just because sometimes banks get robbed? No, you wouldn't. But the Trump administration wants to take money away from services for people who actually need them. Poor people, elderly people, disabled people. And basically give that money to Trump personally. Sort of reverse Robin Hood style, I guess you could call it. Take from the poor, give to the rich. And give what could be an unbelievable amount of money. As the Times put it last night, a settlement payout, even a fraction of the size of Mr. Trump's requested $10 billion, could be much larger than his other attempts at private gain, potentially doubling his net worth. But even if this settlement doesn't ultimately come with a big check for Trump, he might be able to walk away with something just as valuable. You see, one of the settlement options reportedly being floated would be the IRS agreeing not to audit President Trump, his family members, or his businesses. Yeah, that's right. If he can't get a full $10 billion from American taxpayers, he will apparently settle for zero scrutiny from the IRS. How very generous of him. And that unprecedented protection from financial scrutiny would not just extend to Trump, but to his 2 adult sons and the Trump family businesses, who have all been making money off of his presidency. Which reminds me, guess where Trump's adult son Eric is right now? Well, he's with his father in China. Now, Eric Trump does not have a role in the U.S. government. In fact, he's supposed to be sort of firewalled off from any U.S. government activities because he took over the family businesses when his father re-entered the White House, supposedly to prevent conflicts of interest. But there he is. You can see him. Now, I should say that when asked about Eric Trump joining the trip, the White House simply said that there were no conflicts of interest there. I guess thanks for that. A spokesperson for Eric himself said that Eric was just joining the president in his own personal capacity, saying that Eric will not participate in any discussions or meetings related to any business entity, and that Eric Trump does not have business ventures in China or plans on doing business with China. Now, that is quite an interesting denial, given this piece in the Financial Times out just today. And here's the headline. Eric Trump joins Beijing trip as family-linked group chases China deal. You see, Eric is on the board of a company called Alt 5 Sigma, and you can see him and Don Jr. here ringing the opening bell at the NASDAQ with the name of that company and the name of the Trump family crypto company right behind them. Well, today, while Eric is in China with his dad, the Financial Times is reporting that this company has a memorandum of understanding to explore a potential deal with a Chinese computer chip manufacturer to build AI data centers and a whole bunch of other AI-related stuff. Oh, and guess what else? That Chinese firm they have that memorandum of understanding with, well, Congress has warned that that company is connected to the Chinese Communist Party. Now, neither the Chinese chip manufacturer or Alt 5 responded to the Financial Times request for comment, but it certainly seems like Eric might be getting a little more than just quality time with his dad out of this China trip, doesn't it? I mean, I could go on and on and on about all of the sketchy ways that Trump's sons are making money while their dad is president. Just last month, Eric was on Fox Business bragging out loud about how one of his companies scored a $24 million contract with the Pentagon. Last year, a company partially owned by Trump's other adult son, Don Jr., landed a nearly $5 million contract with the U.S. Air Force. And both of Trump's sons are now part owners in a new drone company that is hoping to win major Pentagon contracts. Now, I should say that all of those companies deny there's any conflict of interest, as do Don and Eric. But wouldn't it be great if someone, say the IRS, were to check, given how clear the potential conflicts of interest are? You would think that Trump and his sons would deserve more financial scrutiny, not less. But nope. Remember, Trump's net worth has already almost tripled. Look at that chart on your screen since he retook office. According to Forbes, that is. And like the New York Times noted, if Trump even gets a fraction of the $10 billion taxpayer dollars he demanded in this settlement, that net worth could double again and then just never be audited. That seems to be what Trump is trying to do here. That is what he is trying to force one set of his lawyers to agree with another set of his lawyers to give him. It's outrageous. And what I want to know now is, what can anyone do to stop it? Joining me now to discuss that and all sorts of things is Democratic Senator Mark Kelly of Arizona. It's great to see you. Thanks for being here.
Good to be on.
Okay. I just tried my best with the help of some excellent producers to kind of explain how outrageous this whole IRS DOJ situation is. But again, I mean, the Justice Department is considering settling a lawsuit with Trump's personal lawyers that would pay Trump a great deal of money or get him out of being audited by the IRS, or both. What goes through your head here?
Well, I mean, I think about this as, a case where it's Trump versus Trump, with Trump as the judge and the jury,
yeah,
and both the lawyers. I mean, it's all him, and he gets to make the decision. And he says, this is about, fraud was part of it, right? Mm-hmm. He said there's all this fraud out there. Well, now this is more fraud to respond to the fraud, but for him and his family. And we've seen this over and over again. It started in his first term in office, but he has accelerated this. You can see it in the chart. That net worth increase comes from, more fraud. Hey, I mean, we've got an election in November. After the November election, assuming we will win back the House and or the Senate, we'll have some levers of power to investigate this stuff, to subpoena people, to ask his family members for records. This is a ripoff of the American people in a way like we have never seen before in this country's history. I mean, there have been, former presidents that have done things that were,
sure,
unseemly. I would contend you could, add all of it up for every other president, multiply it times 1,000, and you would not get even anywhere close to what we're seeing here.
The amount of money Trump has made and his sons have made and are making off of things like Pentagon contracts is just, I mean, it should make people's heads absolutely explode.
How about just the fees from the stablecoin? And he has foreign governments investing in this business. And when they buy into his stablecoin, he generates fees, tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars. And the meme coins, he doesn't even care if he's ripping off his supporters. They'll do a rug pull. They'll run up the price. They'll pull the rug out. His supporters lose their retirements. And, he walks away again with tens of millions of dollars.
It also feels like, I mean, it's so blatant. It's so in your face, all of this. And then just yesterday, I know you saw this. I mean, he was asked if he considers Americans' financial situation when he thinks about the impact of the ongoing war he started with Iran. And he said, I don't think about Americans' financial situation. It's like basically not on his mind. It feels like we've reached this new level of shamelessness.
Well, I don't think he cares and thinks about Americans. I mean, not just their financial situation. He often doesn't, care about their lives, the fact that they might not be able to afford to put gas in their car to go to work, go to a doctor's appointment. I think when he wakes up every day, from what I understand, he's interested in what is there about him in the news, good or bad. The metric for him is that he is being talked about. Caring about the American people, I haven't seen it yet.
I mentioned that Eric Trump is on this trip with his dad. He doesn't have an official role in the government. He says he's there for personal reasons. But there was a Financial Times headline today I just talked about his financial interests in China. What questions do you have about his role on this trip and what he might be doing?
Well, I would want to hear who he's meeting with. I mean, is he with his dad the entire time? Does he get to ask questions? Who are those folks around the president? And what is he saying to them on the sidelines of some very important meetings? He puts his family around him in ways, interacting with our government in unprecedented ways. First administration with his son-in-law and his daughter. Now even he has his son-in-law and another real estate developer trying to negotiate the end to a war. We have professionals that have trained their entire careers to do this kind of work. He ignores them, and he puts people that have little to no experience at this. You can see the results. I mean, where we got into a conflict here in Iran, and the president is just flailing, cannot figure out how to get out of it. Then he sends his son-in-law and Steve Witkoff there to try to negotiate it, and things don't go well. Like, big surprise. Why would you think it would go well if you sent them to negotiate it?
It's again, so blatant exactly what he's doing and who he's sending on these trips. It's also how they phrase things. The Trump family is always, I'm not participating in official meetings. It's like, are you locked in your hotel room? Are you having breakfast? Right. Are you having dinners? I have a lot of questions. I can suggest them to
I'd like
people.
to know where you're going, who you're meeting with.
Exactly. What are you doing while you're there? Let me ask you about J.D. Vance, because he was out there today. I will say this, you don't have to. You could be running against him at some point in the future for higher office. You never know. And he was out there today saying that Donald Trump cares deeply about fraud while he was announcing massive cuts to programs that essentially help poor people, people with disabilities, seniors across the country. I have my own theories about what this is all about. What is it all about?
Well, I don't know. I mean, every single day when I wake up and I look at what this administration is doing, and it's not only the president, it's the people around him, it's the Secretary of Defense, who, in my view, most unqualified guy ever in this job, a bunch of sycophants to the president looking to, kiss up to him. At every single opportunity, including, somebody I used to serve with which is J.D. Vance. Mm-hmm. I mean, just trying to find every moment when he can try to please the president. Mm-hmm. That is not a recipe for success of any organization. I mean, I used to, when I was flying the space shuttle, I used to tell my crew members, I used to tell them this, that they're required to question my decisions. Mm-hmm. And then we would have to talk about it. And we'll figure it out together as a team. I don't think you ever see anything like that from this president. He is right. He thinks he knows more than everybody else. And he has a team of people around him that reinforce this behavior of thinking that he is the smartest person in the room. Remember, this is a guy who said, I went to military high school. I know more than admirals and generals about how to fight a war, about our Department of Defense. That is not the way the world works. And we can see from, his lack of success, especially in this second term, just the danger of electing somebody of this kind of temperament.
It's such an important, I worked for two presidents. They both sought out differences in the room,
right?
People who disagreed, dissenting opinions. That's a
Yes.
healthy thing, and that is certainly not what's happening here. Okay, Senator Kelly, you have been so generous with your time. You're going to stick around through a commercial break. I want to talk when we get back about someone you just mentioned, Secretary Pete Hegseth, and his ongoing war in general, but also against you. In his latest salvo on social media, he says, Captain in quotation marks, there we go, Mark Kelly strikes again. Now he's blabbing on TV, falsely and dumbly, about a classified Pentagon briefing he received. Did he violate his oath again? Department of War legal counsel will review. That's very ranty. I'm sure you have thoughts. Can't wait to hear them. We'll be right back. And Fox host turned Secretary of Maximum Lethality, his favorite phrase, Pete Hegseth, is once again threatening the person sitting right next to me at this table. This time for, quote, blabbing about what Hegseth claims was classified information involving the depletion of U.S. weapons stockpiles and the time it would take to replenish them. But the concern about U.S. munition levels isn't new. We've talked about it a lot on this show. It's been widely reported on for months. Here's an article from April published by, oh, what's that? You see the insignia on the top? Pete Hegseth's former employer, Fox News. They published that article. And as for Kelly's reference to the timing of when these stockpiles could be replenished, he was literally quoting what Pete Hegseth said in his public Senate hearing last month. It's pretty clear the entire point is to intimidate people into mindlessly accepting the Trump-Hegseth warped version of reality about this war. Just yesterday, Trump accused news outlets of committing virtual treason for doing their jobs and reporting on the realities of this conflict. And roughly 30 minutes after that meltdown, the New York Times published a new piece detailing how U.S. intelligence shows that Iran still retains substantial capabilities. Today, MSNOW confirmed key pieces of that reporting, including that 90% of Iran's Strait of Hormuz launch sites and 70% of its missile stockpile and mobile launchers survived U.S. airstrikes. And that is the actual reality this administration doesn't want Senator Kelly or reporters or really any of us to talk about. And Senator Mark Kelly is back with me. Pete Hegseth, you're clearly in his craw. We know that. Right. We've talked about it quite a bit. You're winning in the courts. He's threatening you yet again. I just read from his post. Why?
I think he doesn't want to be held accountable. I think when he gets asked hard questions, he's got a bunch of talking points. He spends a lot of his time in the Pentagon, right? People immediately around him. He fired a bunch of people. He doesn't want to be held accountable, just like the rest of the administration. They put a lot of yes people around him. He censured me for saying that. Actually, it's in the censure letter that I accused him and this administration of having a lot of yes men around them. That was one of their grievances against me. That and saying I would always defend the Constitution. But it's about accountability. They've made a lot of mistakes. He's hit 15,000 targets. You remember he said we set new records. 10,000, 12,000, 15,000. Talks about investigating me. If there should be any investigation, it should be who decided to do that and get so little to show for it. What do we have to show for it? We have 13 dead Americans. There's at least 150 dead little Iranian kids. Strait of Hormuz is closed. Gas prices are skyrocketing. In my state, $4.50, $4.80 a gallon. In Phoenix, that could go up more from here, and they do not have an answer. This administration is flailing.
It feels to me, you have been fearless from the beginning in responding to this, but there are a lot of people who have formerly served, former members of the military, some of whom speak out, some whom may not want to. Do you think part of this is silencing other people, scaring them?
They have told me. Yeah. I've had admirals and generals. Some have been out of the military for a while. Some have recently departed who have come up to me and have told me that what is happening to me has changed what they say publicly and what they do. I mean, think about that. This is a suppression of our most fundamental constitutional right. The First Amendment is the one that kind of ensures the other constitutional rights. And it's very obvious that this isn't about me. They're trying to silence retired service members, 2 million of us that are out there that have a role in our democracy. I mean, we have the experience to be able to, call out bullshit when we see it. They don't like that. The president wants to shut us up. That's why he can say something like, I should be hanged, because he thinks that's going to intimidate me. Or Pete Hegseth saying, I'm going to be investigated. But I've said it 1,000 times. I'm not going to be intimidated. I'm not going to be silenced. I am sticking up for the constitutional rights of 2 million retired service members, and really for all of us.
And I hope other people aren't silenced, too. It's easy for me to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Senator Mark Kelly, for being here.
Appreciate it.
Okay, up next, another cabinet secretary tried to defend the incredibly shady no-bid contracts Donald Trump is giving out for his D.C. renovations no one asked for. And here's how that went.
We had 19 fountains across the city that didn't work.
That's the serious injury to the government? The serious injury to the government?
Well,
Trust me, it only got worse from there. And Congressman Joe Neguse joins me next.